We don't want women to be flower girls being promised that, oh, we'll nominate you. We don't want to be nominated. We want to be there as they make policies for this government. We want to have a say at the top, not at the bottom. Number one, when you become an advocate, as a female advocate, people will tend to look at you in terms of you may be trouble. You're a woman who may cause trouble just because you're a woman advocate, because you are educated, you know your rights. So there are men who are easily intimidated, yes, I say. But we promote women's rights, but that does not mean that we don't think that the male gender is not useful. They're very useful. My name is Christine Kungu. I am an advocate, I am a law lecturer, and I am a women's rights advocate. I am very passionate in the three things that I've just mentioned, and in that manner. I love going to court to fight for women's rights. I love being and taking the real load in terms of any case whereby you feel we need to change jurisprudence regarding women's rights. So that's why I say I'm a women's rights lawyer, but I'm also an advocate. I totally believe that as an advocate, you can make an impact in this country in very many ways. So my choice of being an advocate was influenced probably when I was around 15 years and I was in Form 2, and I said to myself, I want to be a lawyer. But at the same time, I realized that being a girl, because I come from a family of 7, I'm the 4th born. And I can tell you, I really struggled in terms of being a middle child has its consequences. The first 3 are given priority. The last 3 are given priority because they are younger. So you find yourself, you want to fight for you to be heard. So I could easily get into fights with my siblings because I feel like no one is listening to me. You're listening to the seniors, you're listening to the younger ones. But what about me? So I think I honed my skills of being an advocate when I was so young by fighting for what I want, to the extent that I would be the one fighting my seniors. I would be the one bullying my juniors to the extent that I also want to be heard. To that extent, I grew up wanting to fight for my rights. And then I realized if I can fight for my rights, then I can also fight for other people's rights. And that's what shaped me in terms of being a middle child. I think that was the advantage of being a middle child. It taught me that in this world, if you don't fight for your rights, people will look at you, people will pass you, but you need to have an impact. And for me, that is when I started thinking of, I want to be an advocate. Growing up, number one, when you become an advocate, as a female advocate, already there are situations whereby you engage with people who feel that you know too much in terms of you know your rights. And that sometimes tends to be looked at in terms of that you are a woman and a half. You know what I mean? In terms of you're not the ordinary woman. So people will tend to look at you in terms of you may be trouble. You're a woman who may cause trouble just because you're a woman advocate, because you are educated, you know your rights. So there are men who are easily intimidated, yes, I say. But there are men who get to know us as advocates and who even have interacted with us as members of FIDA. They realize we are just normal. Yes, we promote women's rights, but we also know our place in terms of the marriage. You know your place. You know that your husband is there. Your husband is the pillar. You know that as in the institution of marriage, that you are his partner and not any other way. So I think the best way to approach some of these situations is that you need to have a very delicate balance. When you're in your office, you're an advocate. When you are in your house, you are a wife. You are a mother. So that if you have that delicate balance, then no one will say that umeleta mambo ya usheria kwa nyumba. Because when you're in your house, you know, I am a mother, I am a wife, I have my responsibilities. So that our roles as women should also not be demeaned in a manner that just because you're an advocate, now you cannot be a partner in a marriage institution. That is also one of those patriarchal things that people bring, that someone should not look for a partner who's an advocate. There'll be no peace in that house. I tell you, many of my colleagues who are married to advocates, they have the most the happiest marriages which have worked. They have kids who are now growing up, and there's nothing different from a man who marries just someone who has an ordinary degree. So I think those are just things that people come up with, and they do not really help. But as a man, I believe that when you love your woman, love her for everything. Love her for that degree she has in law. Love her for being a FIDA member. Love the entire package and be proud of her and even help her. Yeah, just like we do. When our man has passion for any other area, even if you don't have a passion for that, you love him for that package. You cannot love him half. You have a problem with him doing this, but you're okay with him just being your husband. So it's the same thing. So I think there's nothing wrong. There's absolutely no difference between a woman who's a lawyer and a woman who has any other degree. We're all the same. But all it involves is being able to balance our role as wives, our role as mothers. I think this issue of women are their worst enemies is one of those things that has been generated by people who want women to fight each other. I don't agree with it because you see, even in this country, most of the time, we are different, but we are a community where we realize we have unique challenges. Yes, we have our negatives. We are very emotional sometimes to the extent that perhaps we are not objective, and perhaps we are able to pick up things that the male gender cannot be able to pick up easily. We are able to talk about things that bother us, woman to woman, compared to the male gender. And when we say it loud, perhaps that's when people say that we are our worst enemies. We are good at criticizing compared to the other gender, which would rather keep quiet. So maybe when you criticize, and you see there's positive criticism and there's negative. So sometimes we do positive in terms of just telling our sister that maybe you needed to do this, you needed to dress better, you needed to say this. That doesn't mean that we are our own enemies. In fact, it means as sisters, we are there to support each other. So I believe it's a myth. It's one of those narratives that people like spreading, just again to point out at women as not being together. I live somewhere near Langata Road, and I was in the middle of taking a walk, and then I saw two people sharing a video on social media, and I leaned over because there are people I know, and they told me, have you seen what has happened? There was a lady who I think hit a boda rider, and this is what happened. The video I saw, I think after that I've never been the same again. So I saw the video of this lady being sexually assaulted by a group of Kenyan men. And maybe, let me not say Kenyan men, but men, because I'm not sure if they're all Kenyan. And I went back to my house and I started doing a bit of search in terms of what happened. So I got the story because it was now trending that this lady knocked down a boda rider on Forest Road. And I think the crowd became hostile. And in the middle of doing that, I think the crowd that was there thought that she was running away. But how did they react? They decided that we are going to teach this lady a lesson. And what did they do? The men who were there decided they are going to sexually assault her. And that was a sexual assault because what they ended up doing is to touch this lady in a manner that was definitely a sexual assault. They tried to remove her underwear. They tried to remove her bra. They basically were out to rape this girl until someone came and perhaps it was a police officer who rescued this girl. So when I saw that, I asked myself, we don't know what exactly happened. Is it true that she knocked down a boda? Okay, maybe she did. But is it right that even if she did, for people to treat her in that manner? This could have been anyone. It could be anyone who assaulted this girl. It could be their daughter. It could be their wife. It could be anyone's daughter, anyone's mother. Was it right for them to do that to this girl? Do they know what this girl was going through? Touching your private parts for those 15 minutes from all corners of your body, people humiliating you in that manner just because there was an accident. And then I asked myself, would it really have happened if it was a man who had actually hit that boda person? So it really upset me. And as a woman, of course, my emotions were really running high. But I said to myself, So I'm here sitting down, I am upset. How am I helping this woman? So I reached out to some of my colleagues in the FIDA board, our chair, and I said, we must do something. And we quickly thought about what do we do? And we said, we must be heard. This cannot happen to any other woman in Kenya. Let people respect the law. What people did to that woman was definitely something that must never happen again. So we said, we must be felt. So we quickly thought of doing a statement, which we did, but we said a statement is not enough. We said we're going to organize a protest whereby we're going to invite any woman in Kenya to join us, and we organized a protest from, I think, the former Freemark area to the Minister for, the Cabinet Secretary for Security. We also dropped a statement at the office of the Kenya Police, their base. Then we went to the office of the Attorney General. And we were ignored in all those other areas, but when we came to the office of the Attorney General, somehow I think the media were following this story. I think it was NTV and Citizen that were showing us live, and perhaps it got the attention of the big boys, if I may call them that. So when we reached the office of the AG, 3 cabinet secretaries came and spoke to us. The Cabinet Secretary for Security, the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, and the Cabinet Secretary for ICT. They came and they told us that they agree with us, that they can see that what happened on Forest Road should never happen again. And they were happy with what we'd done, and they engaged us in terms of how can we partner together moving forward so that such an incident can never happen again. So for me, I feel that the protest march we did on that day, and of course with the help of the media, it showed Kenya that women, we cannot take that kind of nonsense again. It shows that we cannot be quiet when one of us is assaulted for something that could have been handled very easily by the law, for something that it only took someone to call the police to analyze if indeed this woman knocked this boda, and we see what are the next steps. But for people to decide to sexually assault a woman because of a traffic road accident, it shows we've gone very low as a country. And for me, I kept telling my friends who are male, imagine if that was your wife. Her coming back to your house, your matrimonial home, and her explaining to you how some 25 men were putting their hands in her private areas. Imagine if that was your daughter. Imagine the kind of infection that even that girl could have had. And if it wasn't for the police, definitely, I am very sure it was going to be a rape. So then, for me, I was very happy we made an impact on that day. And I think within 1 hour, there was a raid on boda, if you can remember. By around 2 a.m., you could not see any boda in Nairobi because they were being arrested. People said the police overreacted. The police did not overreact. And I think almost 6 months down later, you've seen that they have now realized that they are not above the law. Before that, these guys were behaving like they are above the law. They were not assaulting only female motorists, but they were also behaving in a way that no one can touch them. So for me, I feel that was a point of the lowest point in Kenya in terms of sexual and gender-based violence. So I believe that is an incident that I had every reason to be happy about what we did as FIDA. So perhaps 1 or 2 choices that I made did not augur well. For example, at the point of secondary, I did not get the secondary school of my choice because of a mix-up of what my parents wanted. They felt I need to go to the top schools, which I missed by a mark. I ended up going to a day school. And I must share that being a day scholar was quite hard for me. I saw some of my colleagues who did not make it, either because they ended up being pregnant, because when you're a day scholar, I come from a family where my parents did not have a car. You end up taking a matatu every day. You're a young girl, you're discovering life, you're discovering yourself. There's this matatu tout who at that particular point makes you feel like you're the prettiest young girl on earth. There were a lot of temptations in terms of growing up for me and being a day scholar. So I thank God every day that I was able to finish Form 4 without a single day getting involved in that. But what I've seen and what I would ask parents at that point, if you're going to take your girl to a day school, please ensure that you are able to follow what's happening in their life, because they go through a lot. And if you don't take care, definitely something might end up happening to them. And we all know the kind of career that mostly mothers we have. So I think that's one of the things that I can say was a challenge in terms of growing up. But that then meant I feel like I did not do well in terms of where I wanted with my secondary school results, having been in a day school, and those challenges I've talked about. But when I went to university, I said, I will definitely ensure that what I did not get in high school, I will get in college. So for me, when I was admitted to the University of Nairobi, I gave it my all. I'm the type of a student, I started basically reading from day 2 of being admitted. You see, that is totally the opposite, because again, in university, the first year is one of those years where, again, you are rediscovering yourself. You are a young adult, you want to party, you want to date, there's a lot of temptation here and there. There's all manner of things, but I thank God that I focused and I got to get what I wanted to get. So from secondary, from university, once we were able to finish, the other challenge was now going to the School of Law. Now, this is where many people don't know, because you see, I'm a law lecturer. I see many of my students struggling with law school. You know, by the time students are in law school, a majority of them sometimes don't pass at the first instance. But I also went through that. I remember there's a paper that I struggled with called Accounting for Lawyers. I have never loved accounting. And I failed, and I was not able to graduate with my classmates. Majority of them don't know, because, you know, between university, the School of Law, and being admitted to the bar, you don't really know where your colleagues are. So for me, I graduated 1 year after. We were supposed to graduate in 2004. I graduated in 2002. I graduated in 2003 in December. So I was 1 year late. But majority did not know, because now when we meet in courts, we are all the same. So why I'm saying this is because sometimes when people see that you are successful, which I believe I am, they think you did not have any kind of challenge. I had mine. I had to wait a whole year to pass that exam. That meant I could not do my pupillage. That meant I could not get a job, because I wanted to focus on finishing this particular paper. And after that, I think my career took a trajectory from there on. I'm happy that from the time I was admitted to the bar, October 13th, 2005, I've worked in different places. I am happy that I have never stayed at home, even for 1 month from 2005, without a job. And that is something that I don't take for granted, because I've seen colleagues, I've seen peers who've really struggled. I've seen friends who tell me, Christine, you're very lucky. You've never missed a job. In fact, you've changed jobs. After every 5 years, I have this thing of, I want to work in a different area. So I have kind of been happy to earn a salary in all the stages in my life, from the time I started working in 2005, November, until to date, 2022, July. So for me, that is a blessing. For me, it shows that apart from even my hard work, that God is there and God is faithful. All right, so my early years, between 2005 and 2009, I worked in a law firm. We did the normal court work of going to court. I remember myself as a young lawyer, you carry 5 files to court every single day. That is your work. 5 files, heavy files, from my office. My office was in Shankanda's house in Kenya Cinema, near Kenya Cinema, to Milimani Law Courts. So that is your work every day. But I realized that, yes, I love litigation, but I felt like I want to do more. And after 3 years in practice, I realized I want to be specific in terms of what do I want to do in terms of being an advocate. So then as I grew much older in practice, one day we had a matter whereby my boss told me, my boss was called, the very first lawyer I worked for is a gentleman by the name Alfred Nyandieka. And I respect him because he was a very good advocate. He taught me very good skills in terms of litigation. So we had this matter where our client was the wife of an army guy, and the army guy was killed in, I think, in Sudan But now the problem is there was a burial dispute. So when this gentleman was killed, this lady was unable to bury her husband because the family of the husband said, we have to bury our child in Meru, but this lady was coming from Luyaland. So it became a burial dispute. At that particular point, she was a young mother with a one-year-old, and she was not able to bury this guy, and the in-laws really fought her. And that's when she decided to come to my boss, Mr. Nyandeka. So Mr. Nyandeka told me, Christine, I think this is a matter you can handle. And I was not confident because I kept telling him, I'm a young lawyer. How do I handle such a situation whereby this man is an army guy? Look at the family where he comes from. So he told me, you can handle. And I was given the file. And as I did this case for almost a year, I think in 2010, I realized that there is what we call unique issues that affect women. The only reason why this woman was being fought by the in-laws is because the husband has passed on. Before, when the husband was alive, they loved her, they treated her like their own. But the moment the husband passed on, they were fighting her because of property. Because someone had told them that if you allow this woman to bury her husband, all the allowances, all the, in terms of succession, everything that your son has made in life as an army guy will go to her. So they were fighting her on this very wrong presumption that if you allow the widow to bury, then the army will pay only this woman, they will not pay you anything. So you already see that that's a discrimination aspect of a young woman who is a widow being mistreated by in-laws. So then, for me, my approach was, number one, to fight for this woman in court. I saw the acrimony they had for her. I think one of them even told her, but you don't know that this guy even had a second wife from our area where we were two girlfriends. I saw the way she was treated. And I said, these are unique aspects in terms of women's rights. When your in-laws fight you like that just because you're a woman, because I believe it was the other way around, that would not have happened. So I discovered then that I love advocating women's rights. And for me, this burial dispute made me realize that I don't want just to be a lawyer who just goes to court to do any other matter. I want to be an advocate who does the women's rights. I want to be a women's rights advocate. And there you go. At that point, I realized that I have a calling to fight for women in court as an advocate. So I applied to the Federation of Women Lawyers, FIDA, in, I think, around 1st May 2010. They called me for an interview, I think 2 months later, in July, and they interviewed me. I told them that I've never worked for an NGO, but I am passionate about women's rights, and that's how I got my job. So I started working on my birthday, 6th October 2010. I remember it because I remember my family was like, hey, this is a birthday blessing. So I worked from FIDA from that time, where now I was very specific about litigating women's rights. However, around 2014, I felt like I needed to do more. Maybe I was also still discovering myself because I had done probably 8 years in practice. I felt like for the last 4 years, I've done a lot of women's rights. Can I do something else? I felt like I needed something else in terms of growing my career. So I felt that I need to take time from FIDA. And as fate would have it, someone told me that I've seen you training somewhere. Would you want to be a lecturer? And I told myself, lecturer? Me? How? I'm young. And they told me just give it a shot. And because I was looking for a job, I was shortlisted. I actually applied to the Kenya School of Law in 2014 for the position of lecturer. They did not call me until after 6 months. So after 6 months, I got a text that you have an interview tomorrow morning at 9, come to Karen. And I said, hi, this is rather strange. So I said, let me go. And you'll never believe it. The same date that I went for the FIDA job is the same date that they actually called me for an interview. 6th October 2014 is when I had my interview with the Kenya School of Law. I met a panel of very intimidating senior counsels. My former boss, PLO Lumumba, 2 or 3 judges. I think there was a Justice Muigai. And I really felt like this is quite intimidating. So when they told me they'll get back to me, I knew, that one, you imenda even. Only for them to call me again after 2 months. And then they told me, you did very well in the first interview, but we have another interview again for you, this time with our board members. So when I went for that other interview, I went at 9 a.m. At 9:10, they asked me, can you start next week? So that was a tricky question. I was like, are they trying to see if perhaps I have this thing of, it's normally good practice for you to say, I have to give 1 month notice where I am, so that they can see you're also a loyal person. So I said, I have to give 1 month notice. They said, excellent. Then you can start on 1st December. And that is how I got myself in KSL. So I realized that I felt like I needed something else apart from just promoting women's rights in court. I needed something that was more challenging in my life at that particular point. And hence, this job was very exciting to me. So come 2015, I started teaching. By 1 year, I felt there's still a gap in my life. As much as I enjoyed interacting with law students, because these are young law students, I felt that why can't I teach or why can't I lecture and still do my promoting women's rights? So that in 2016, I went back to my former employer, FIDA, and I told them, I still feel there's more I want to do. Can you guys be giving me a bit of work? When you have matters in court, I can do pro bono work. When you want to go train women in certain counties, I can come, provided you tell me early. And it kind of worked for me because as a lecturer, provided you are able to teach, you're able to deliver in terms of your terms of reference, you can have time to do other things. So I was able to manage, but not forgetting that, of course, I had to give priority to my employer, which is the Kenya School of Law. But at the same time, the passion for women's rights was still calling. So I started doing pro bono work for FIDA. And in 2017, a good friend of mine called Valentine Yokabi challenged me. I told me, Christine, you still have a lot of passion for women's rights. I hear you complaining the way FIDA needs to do this and that. FIDA is not doing things the right way. Why don't you vie for a post in the next elections for boards? Because FIDA is a members organization, and the people who sit in the FIDA board are members. So she told me, you're in the comfort zone. You feel like you're doing 1 or 2 things for them, but I think you need to go in deep. So I said, okay. So 2018, I presented my paper as a board member. We went through elections in March, and I got elected among the 9 positions in the FIDA board. And that is how I found myself in the FIDA board. 4 years later, I've risen as a FIDA ordinary board member, and I'm now the vice chairperson, effective 1st March 2022, where I was elected to lead the FIDA organization as a vice chairperson. I must say that FIDA has an impact, and it depends on how you want to take the impact. Majority who have realized what FIDA does have realized it has a positive impact in society. There are some who still take it negatively because of the perception that has been there in society, and also because of many people who would want to still portray FIDA in terms of, number one, there's this perception that FIDA is, the watchdog that will come after you when you do anything to your wife. And I mean anything, even if you just tell your wife, today you've not done this, they will call FIDA. So that definitely has rubbed some men in the country in the wrong way. That has definitely rubbed some leaders, male leaders in this country, as way back as when I was a young girl during the Moi regime. I remember as a young girl when I was 10 years and I could hear President Moi saying, hey, FIDA, hawa wanawake wa FIDA. So you can see the people who grew up during the Moi regime, like myself, tukikunywa maziwa ya Nyayo, as young as that, you'd be like, then FIDA must be a bad thing for me as a boy child. And now they are men. So they grew up with that. But for them who have taken time to understand the kind of work FIDA does, you realize that FIDA is not there to break you as a man. FIDA is not there to break a family. If anything, the kind of work we do, we try as much as possible to consider that the family needs to come back together. And that is why if we have a client who has a problem in their marriage, for example, your parents, you are not together, you've separated, and this can happen to any couple. We have to be open-minded that this is happening. We've seen couples who you're married today, July 15th, by July 15th next year, you've separated because of the many, many issues we have in this world. That can happen. If such a client comes to us and they want our help, maybe the father is not paying school fees, FIDA steps in because that's our mandate to be able to offer legal representation to ensure that this male parent is able to take care and discharge the parental responsibilities. So you see, that's one of the mandates of FIDA, to help women who are struggling with discharging their parental responsibility. Now, you see, the perception there would be then, we are after men, which is not really true, because you see, it's even in the law that as a male parent, you must take care of your children. It's even in the Constitution. The Constitution says you cannot leave parental responsibility to only one parent. So what FIDA does is basically to actualize what is in the law. So FIDA doesn't operate outside the law as per what other people would say and imagine that sisi ni watu wabaya, we are after men. What brought in FIDA, or what actualized the setting up of FIDA, was the realization that women in this country, we have very unique challenges that maybe the male gender doesn't have. We have challenges in terms of, number one, there's a lot of patriarchy when you deal with women, and because also of our community as Africans. There's a way in which a woman will be disregarded as not being equal to a man, and that has led to other many things that now women are suffering from. So because of that patriarchy and the uniqueness of what we go through, a group of women lawyers, some of whom are now top in our country, one of whom is the first female Chief Justice, among many others, came together and said, as women lawyers, what can we do to help women in society? Because of those unique challenges in terms of culture barriers, in terms of societal barriers, in terms of the patriarchy that is there, that perhaps other people would not realize that we have our own unique challenges. They decided to form a small organization in a very small office somewhere near Kenyatta Street, which now grew up. But you see, their vision was, let's start a legal aid, which will then offer what we call a legal clinic to women in terms of the woman who cannot afford a lawyer. Where will that woman go? So this woman will then come to FIDA. So that is how FIDA started, for the indigent woman who is unable to afford a lawyer, but who has serious challenges in terms of maybe you are a widow, you have been evicted by your in-laws, where do you go? These children are here, they're looking for you for help, you've just laid your husband, but your in-laws have decided, you go, your husband is dead, you've buried him, go. Such women, where do they go? They cannot afford advocates. A woman who has been battered, a woman who's been left with a spouse, has been battered and perhaps needs counseling, needs psychosocial help. Where does that woman go? So all this type of unique things, a woman perhaps who has realized a child is being defiled by her biological father, and you want to run away from that particular matrimonial house, you want to take away your kids, where do you go? So such kind of issues are quite unique. Such kind of issues perhaps might not apply to the male gender. So with these unique aspects is how some of the three prominent women lawyers in this country decided to come up with a small organization which would take care of those needs, particularly for women who are not able to afford lawyers. But that was 35 years ago. But looks like FIDA has really grown. FIDA is now a 35-year-old woman, if I may use that, because it has grown from a small office to a big institution, which is now active in 3 areas of the country. We're in Nairobi, we're in Mombasa, we're in Kisumu. We have employed over 70 women lawyers. We have 1,600 women lawyers who are our members, because we are a membership organization. And the unique thing about us is that we help women who are unable to help themselves in terms of legal aid. But we are also a women focused organization made up of women lawyers. In that, we empower each other as women lawyers. In that, we help each other in terms of even networking. And at the same time, as women lawyers, we give it back to society, because we have a pool of pro bono lawyers, women lawyers, who now come to offer this aid to the women who are unable to afford legal fees. So you see, in the sense of it then, as women lawyers, we help ourselves. And at the same time, we give back society. So you can see the plus that it has, which carries more weight compared to the negative the negative perception that is there. So then that perception, I must say, growing up in the Moi regime, it started from that particular government. Probably it went to the homes because Moi was a very powerful president. Some of the cabinet ministers, I can remember the likes of Gumo, if that is his name. I think I remember the same sentiments. FIDA inaharibu manyumba zetu. So you see, in such a situation, and the way Kenya was at that time, when you hear a minister talking about an NGO like that, you grow up believing that this FIDA is not good. So I say that that perception came from the political spaces. It came from our leaders. I think that perception is clearly dying. We have female leaders, male leaders in this country who've really embraced FIDA. The likes of Kalonzo Musyoka, who's a friend of FIDA. He comes, he has done a lot of work with us. The likes of James Orengo, senior counsel. So we have male lawyers who have realized the impact of FIDA and they work closely with us because at the end of the day, we even have programs that we are now trying to make people understand that FIDA is there to protect family. We are now more focused on such programs which we call mediation or alternative dispute resolution, where if you have an issue with your spouse, you have an issue with your co-parent in terms of taking care of your child, we invite you over, we give you someone who will help you to illustrate what is wrong. A, B, C, you lay out, then that person, a trained mediator, helps you to come up with a solution for both of you. Because you see, at some point, and in terms of life, some of these family disputes, it just takes one person outside to sit you down for you to understand that the problem is not as big as you imagine. The problem maybe is that you can't just sit down as two others and talk. So then if you let it eat you, it will go beyond the court. And sometimes the court is not the best person to really adjudicate on some of these family law matters. For me, from my experience, sometimes mediation helps. A matter of you sitting down, coming up with a solution for your children. So for me, in that sense, you can see with the kind of programs that FIDA is offering now, like mediation, psychosocial, where we allow you to come, we give you a counselor so that you are able to bring out what the problem is, you are counseled to make an informed choice, then we let you go. That perhaps was not there those days. So with time, we introduce new programs packaged specifically for the good of the family. So you see, we are for the good of the family and not against the family. So the perception that is there, I believe, is slowly dying. The thing is, our mandate is very specific: advancing women's rights, promoting women's rights, matters legally, matters of empowerment. But you see, women issues sometimes are very many. There are some instances where certain issues happen to women. People will call out FIDA, yet sometimes it's not our mandate. Sometimes it is the government that needs to actually handle such situation when it comes to issues like legal policy, things beyond what FIDA can do. But people will still mention, where is FIDA? Where is FIDA that members of parliament have refused to pass this law? Where is FIDA that women in Kisumu have no water? Where is FIDA where women in Eldoret, girls in Eldoret have no sanitary pads? So you see, that is beyond. And that then tells you that the expectations are quite large, larger than us. And that means, as an organization, we are trying as much as possible within our mandate to do what we've set up to do. But we also realize that we need stakeholders. We realized very early we need to work with government. So we're now working with government because we would be cheating ourselves if we say, as FIDA, we can help every woman in Kenya. That is impossible. Just like government cannot help all of us in Kenya, even FIDA cannot help all the women. So with the various stakeholders and perhaps like-minded institutions, that is other NGOs who are now dealing with issues of girl rights, child rights, we are able to advance the the gender agenda. So I must say that we're not saying with FIDA it means that all these issues will die, but somehow it will be curtailed. Somehow we are seeing improvement here and there. We are seeing a lot of impact on a daily basis, and that is why we continue to exist. That is why we are the premier women's rights organization, not only in Kenya, in Eastern Africa. That's why whenever there's any issue regarding a woman, a donor out there will reach out to FIDA before they can reach out to the government. So in terms of issues like sexual and gender-based violence, we have managed to even put in legislation. For example, the Sexual and Offences Act, that was a brainchild of Lady Justice Njuki, the Supreme Court judge. That is a FIDA member. She started out as a FIDA lawyer probably 25 years ago. You see, those are the steps we're talking about. Before that, we do not have any law in Kenya which dealt with issues like sexual and gender-based violence, rape, defilement, incest. But with time, we now have placed statutes through our members, such as the good old judge. Then you can see we've also influenced a lot of policy. Just the other day, we were working on an act called the Prohibition of FGM Act, which prohibits FGM. Those are the things I'm talking about. Culture. FGM is one of those cultures that has refused to go away. But we've been there for the last 10 years trying to ensure that we go to the counties which practice FGM. Yes, it has reduced, but it has not gone away. Yes, the government has been working with us. And the government having its own budget, they have not been able also to curtail and perhaps kill it. So you can see those are the issues which are new and emerging that we must keep working together. And why I believe FIDA will continue being in existence and FIDA will never be irrelevant. We have a lot of work to do, but we've done a lot of work also. So we are growing with new and emerging issues affecting women. We keep realigning ourselves to what else can we do, but we are alive to the fact that we need to work with relevant stakeholders. I told you I come from a family where we are 7 siblings. I'm the middle child. I have only one sister. Our firstborn is a girl. The rest are all boys. So all in all, I realized that we were supposed to be the ones who do the cooking, do the washing, yet majority of us were almost the same age, so that our brothers would then come from school, do their homework, and be called, food is ready. But for us, you have to do the homework, yes, but remember, jikoni na kungoja. So are you seeing where now the issue of empowering the girl child started? So that you make the girl child feel that her life is different from the boy child. Her life is more difficult in terms of she has other responsibilities of cooking, washing, but the boy child is just homework, bed. That already was a problem. That already was a problem in terms of some of our parents felt that if there is a problem financially in the matrimonial house, priority is given to the boy child because the boy child is going to be a man. This girl child will end up getting married anyway, so why should we bother with her? That is where this discussion started, where you make a child feel like they are less important because of their gender. And it brought a lot of disharmony in terms of when you're growing up with your brothers. You feel, number one, they are favored, they are more respected, they are treated with a lot of gloves compared to you who's a girl, and yet you are told we are the weaker sex. But we are treated like we are the stronger sex in terms of you do a lot of work compared to them. So I think that narrative of empowering the girl child started off by ensuring that you treat your daughters equally to your sons. And if that then meant that you utilize the objectives of making both children feel equal, then the boy child ought not to feel that they are now disempowered. The boy child should feel that they have the same rights as their sisters. From the time in which you go to school, you are given fair opportunities in education. You're given fair opportunities after being educated in terms of the job. Again, the girl child doesn't feel like there are some jobs which are only meant for the boy. I can't apply to be a CEO. Only my brother can apply to be a CEO. Yet we went to the same schools. Probably the girl child even did better. But somehow you feel that, let me apply to be a deputy CEO and not a CEO. So I think the parenting is something that is key. As a parent, do not make any of your children feel less. Do not talk with your spouse and your children are listening and you're busy saying the way, kama school fees ni shida, afadhali the boy child goes to school, the girl child will find something for her to do. Those kind of discussions in a family are the ones that contribute towards this mess. There are some girls who are born to be very abrasive, but there are boys also who are born not abrasive. But what do you do as a parent? You work on their you work on their weaknesses so that at the end of the day, by the time they're becoming adults, they both feel that they're okay, they are appreciated, they are loved equally. So I think for me, the parenting that was there when we grew up, I had every reason not to like the way the girl child was treated. That for you, as much as you're going to do your homework, jikoni na kungojea. You cannot sleep until you've washed the dishes. But your brother is deep asleep. So you go sleep later after everything else is clean. I don't think it was fair. And that's why maybe some of us worked harder for us to feel that we're on the same length. So you can see already by the time you decide to promote women's rights, it comes from the parenting and how you're made to feel when you're growing up that you should work harder. But of course, that has also changed as parents. We can't treat our children like that. We have to treat our children knowing that they are both loved, they are both equal. The gender doesn't matter. Everyone can go to the kitchen and cook. Everyone can go to the kitchen and wash dishes. That there's no one who will wait to be pakuliwad for. Both of you can stand up, the food is in the right place, pakua, mukae chini. So equality, in terms of parenting, treat your children in an equal manner. Don't make someone feel that they are better than the other just because of the gender. In terms of women in leadership, I must say we are somewhere and I like where we are going. I'll tell you two things. Number one, somehow we've made, for the very first time, the agenda of this country in an election year to be the gender agenda. We have realized that now the top two gentlemen who are now vying to be our next president have realized without the gender agenda, they will actually lose our votes. That has never happened in this country. We've seen both of them meeting women in a conference, signing MOUs, promising this and that to women, because they realize this is actually a constituent that we must not ignore. And if you're going to ignore them at your own peril. And that is why they have made sure, apart from just one, if you look at the four who were cleared by IBC, only one candidate decided that they're not going to have a woman as their running mate. But you can see the way the agenda has now changed. Women have been made to be in the decision-making table. And that's what we want. We don't want women to be flower girls being promised that, oh, we'll nominate you. We don't want to be nominated. We want to be there as they make policies for this government. We want to be there. As they decide that this is the manifesto, we want to be there. As they decide that this is the progressive leadership that we want for this country, we want to be there. In short, we want to have a say at the top, not at the bottom. I think for every sister out there, let me use the word sister, just know that there is hope. And for the ones who are growing up right now, you are lucky. You're growing up in a world which already embraces the girl child compared to when some of us were growing up and it was more difficult to grow up as a child. You're growing up in a world where the opportunities are now equal, and that means it is easier for the girl child compared to some years ago. However, it means then even as a girl or as a sister, you need to have some values. And for me, I think when you have your values, it will all work out for you. For example, for me, my 3 values that I've used in my career is number 1, honesty. You have to be honest in whatever you do. You also have to respect yourself and you have to respect others. So the respect has to be both ways. Because if you don't respect yourself, people will also not respect you. But at the same time, you really have to respect other people. Respect the work that people have done. You change jobs, you must appreciate what other people have done before you. Respect other people's views. Be open-minded that not everyone will look at a perspective like the way you're looking at it. So being open-minded. The other thing I think is integrity, which is very key for me. I think when you realize that everything you do, you must come out as a person of integrity, doors will open for you. People will not look deep into your history and look for skeletons that are not there because your work speaks for yourself. So I think respect for each other also means that as sisters, we also need to ensure that there are boundaries. We must ensure that those boundaries are respected. For example, with colleagues, you must know colleagues are colleagues. Colleagues are not your friends. You are there to work 8 to 5 or 8 to 7. and you go home. But if you start opening up at the boundaries with colleagues, that is the biggest problem in terms of relationships, in terms of letting your all within the workplace. Just have boundaries. The other thing is, I think you need to have a strong support system as a sister. Make sure that you invest in quality friends. You know, quality girlfriends who you know, today I'm down, I am down, I'm down, and the only people who can understand me are those 3 girls of mine. We go sit somewhere, we have coffee, you vent to them, you unleash your tears, you don't care who is listening because you know they are there for you. So you must have a support system as a girl. You must have a support system as a woman because this life has problems. No one can say they are 100% happy. There's always be something that will make you feel like crying in your workplace, in your relationship, be it a marriage, be it dating. Even within the family, sometimes you annoy each other with your parents, your siblings, but you must have a system where you know, these guys, if I go to them, they will take care of me. They'll make sure that I go back home a different person. So support system is key within family. Make sure that you have a good relationship with your parents. These people are important. In as much as we are teenagers, you collide with them. When in your 30s, especially, you realize these are the best people you need to have. These are your best friends. So invest quality time with your parents. Make time for your parents. Make sure that you call your mother. For as a woman, your mother is so important to you. The things that she used to do to you when you were 10, you realize you become exactly like your mother. The way you talk, the way you think, the way you arrange your wardrobe, you just become your mother. And you must have some time for your mother. You must. For me, I call my mother almost every day. My siblings normally tell me, you're a mommy's girl, even at your age. Because I have a relationship with her that is so special. She's the one person who, after a long day, I just want to hear her voice, and I know it's okay. And somehow she knows when I'm in problem. She'll call me and tell me, today you didn't have a good day. I don't know how she knows it. I really treasure my relationship with her. Your dad also, your siblings, making sure you're there for each other, making sure you're there for your nephews, for your nieces, families, everything. Above all, God. For me, I cannot lie to you that every single step I've taken in my career, I have prayed, I have knelt down and prayed to God. God, you need to bless me. You need to give me way forward. Am I making the right step? Including the latest one, where I decided to vie for the FIDA vice chair. I was like, am I not too young to be a FIDA vice chair? Most of the FIDA vice chair persons have been in their 50s. I was like, what? But then I said, let me pray. And God told me, you're good to go. So when I won, I knew it was because of God. So I think for every step you take, you need to pray. You see, this life is very interesting. No one can say that you don't need the other gender. We need each other, and that's why God created us. Huh? We need each other no matter what you do. Even for us as women advocates, yes, we promote women's rights, but that does not mean that we don't think that the male gender is not useful. They're very useful. At some point in your life, you must have that kind of harmony. And for you to progress, you realize your relationship, even with your partner, is very, very important. It's quite critical. You want to hear what they think about what you're doing. You want to get their advice. You want them to appreciate you. You want them to support you. And when they don't do that, you feel like you're incomplete. So what am I saying? I'm saying that we do need each other. There is no competition, but we must have equality. So that equality is basically what we are fighting for. But equality does not also mean that we feel that the other gender ought not to be where they are and we should be on top of them. I think that is creating a different narrative to the script, equality, and ensuring that at the end of the day, we can both coexist in harmony, just like what God created for us to coexist. So coexisting is important. Coexisting is what we should reflect on. No competition, no unnecessary wars, but coexisting in a peaceful environment in this particular world.